Today, I'm Brooke Hash. We still do not know which students will get bused to school next year after the JCPS board decided to delay its vote on a new transportation plan. A scathing audit released Monday night overshadowed that plan that would likely cut transportation for magnet and traditional schools. Our Alex Dieterer explains.
The vote by the JCPS Board of Education to decide how students will be transported to school next year was tabled until April 16th.
And until the board can adequately digest the findings and the recommendations of the audit report, and until we can process the survey that was sent to families on Thursday.
Board Chair Dr. Corey Scholl made the motion to hold off on the vote, citing the damning information that came out in the audit released Monday, which outlined what led to the first day of school transportation meltdown.
The decision before you tonight, which is what I think you're asking about, is short on details I would want to know the answer to.
Tasha Prieto was the project manager who led the audit, watching JCPS board meetings back to 2018 to see what went wrong.
What we saw in the board meetings were uses of phrases like most complex transportation system in the nation. And I'm like, I work in transportation consulting. Hang on a second. You know, maybe you are, right? Maybe you are. But we concluded that was. We've seen more complex. We've seen more difficult. We've seen larger school districts with transportation issues. We've seen school districts that transport magnet students without a perceived challenge.
She told the board the information in the recent audit shouldn't be a surprise and has been consistent with other audits done in the past.
I do not agree that they would be divergent. Your 2020 audit from the Kentucky Department of Education pointed out explicitly, find ways to include transportation to a greater degree in your development of school choice opportunities.
Superintendent Dr. Marty Polio has recommended what the district is calling Option 1. This recommendation would cut transportation for a majority of magnet and traditional school students, a recommendation that has gained vocal opposition since the options were first announced.
Implementing this option will take the district back to neighborhood schools and may perpetuate segregated schools along racial and economic lines, a place that we have been working to avoid for nearly 50 years.
The criticism also coming from Prieto.
What if the district votes to end transportation to 16,000 magnet students and then later finds out you didn't need to make that drastic of a cut?
In Louisville, Alex Dieterer, WHAS 11 on your side.
In a statement last night, Alpha Route pushed back on this audit, saying the majority of the issues identified in that report related to Alpha Route were the result of direct guidance or approvals from JCPS staff or timelines imposed on the project by JCPS staff or procedures. Alpha Route also said it cooperated with the audit and is disappointed there was not context to what it calls inaccurate claims in that report. It was a packed house, as you might have seen during last night's school board meeting. Most in attendance had called for the board to do exactly what it did, hold off on that vote. But the clock is ticking to finalize a new plan before August. Our Taylor Woods and photojournalist Addie Hill spoke to concerned JCPS students and community leaders.
Dozens of students chanting outside the Van Hoos Education Center ahead of the JCPS board meeting where they were expected to vote on transportation for next year.
If we thought that the start of school this year was bad, there is no telling what it will look like next year.
Dozens of families and community members lined up outside the building. Once the meeting room was full, those inside stood anxiously waiting to hear the vote, which was ultimately tabled.
It's definitely a relief that they took a pause on it so we could figure out how to move forward and how they want to move forward with everything.
Many of the students at the meeting go to Central High School. Their transportation could be cut if the district eliminates buses for most magnet and traditional students.
Me going to Central High School, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to a whole lot of black kids, especially getting the opportunity to work through the different magnets.
While JCPS students are pleased with the board deciding to wait, many community leaders are pushing the board to make a fair and equitable decision.
This would have definitely been very devastating if they had passed this transportation plan.
Now leaders say it's up to the board to talk more with the community ahead of the next school board meeting.
In Louisville, Taylor Woods, WHAS 11 on your side.
To see all the options JCPS is considering for next year's bus transportation plan, head to WHAS11.com. And at the same time all this is happening, a measure to create a task force that would look into JCPS and its issues is making progress in Frankfort. The Senate Education Committee heard the resolution, passing it unanimously. The House approved it earlier this month. Specifically, this task force would review districts with more than 75,000 students. And you know, JCPS is the only district in Kentucky that meets that mark. The task force would also explore the idea of breaking up JCPS into smaller districts. The measure is headed to the full Senate. The man at the center of the investigation the night Breonna Taylor was killed is headed to prison. A judge sentenced Jamarcus Glover to 7 years for complicity to trafficking a controlled substance. The charges date back to July of 2020. Glover recently spent nearly 3 months on the run after he failed to show up in court on drug charges in October. He was arrested in January and still facing other drug-related charges and is expected back in court in April and May. Police were executing a search warrant for Glover the night Breonna Taylor was killed. A Kentucky bill focused on giving nail technicians more say on the job cleared the General Assembly Tuesday and now heads to the governor's desk. This bill gives nail technicians more representation on the state board and more opportunity in the licensing process. Nail techs and salon owners previously told our focus team about instances of abuse of power by the state board and described discrimination with applicants forced to test in English even if they didn't speak the language. This bill requires a nail technician to be on that board and allows for retesting. Animal advocates cheered for this one yesterday, the passage of Ethan's Law, which will strengthen animal torture laws in Kentucky, making it a felony on the first offense. It just needs the governor's signature. That bill is named in honor of Ethan, the dog who was neglected and left for dead outside the Kentucky Humane Society about 3 years ago. Ethan was at the Capitol as the state Senate passed that legislation, which makes the torture of dogs and cats a Class D felony in every instance. This is especially important to those who recognize when animals in a home are abused or neglected. It's a warning sign that people in that house may also not be safe.